From the News Channel 5 Network, this is Inside Politics.
Hello, everyone. I'm News Channel 5's political analyst, Pat Nolan. Welcome to Inside Politics. The 2016 race for president is already well underway. We're less than a year away from the election now. It's become quite heated, quite active, and it's sometimes a bit confusing. Today on Inside Politics, we'll bring a couple folks in to help us bring all that into perspective and tell us maybe what lies ahead as well for 2016. With us first is a Nashville attorney and Democratic activist Larry Woods. Next to him is Republican activist Bill Phillips, who helped manage the 1988 Republican National Convention. Gentlemen, thank you both for joining us today.
Pleasure.
Bill, you have 14 active candidates still in the race, and there used to be more. We fill up 2 stages when we do the debates for the Republicans. Why do you have so many candidates this time? I know the seat's open, and that always brings more people, but 14?
Well, I think we're working on viewership for the various networks because they have 2 debates. There's so many of them, and so you end up spending an entire evening listening to it over and over.
Now, Larry, you and I are old enough to remember when the Democrats in this state had 14 candidates, or 13 candidates for governor back in 1974.
That's right.
What's driving it, though, on the national level this time? Is it all the availability of money, particularly the super PAC money?
I think it's the super PAC money in light of the change in the rules in the last 5 years and social media. I can now run a campaign, especially in a primary like Iowa or New Hampshire or South Carolina, small, relatively small states. I can now run a campaign with less money by utilizing the social media.
Now, Bill, we're not even going to start voting until first we go to Iowa for the caucuses and New Hampshire. Those will be in late January, early February.
Right.
So we're going to continue to see this large field on the Republican side before we get down to 3 or 4, at least until we're through those first round of those 2 voting situations, and maybe also including South Carolina?
Yeah, looking at the list, I've decided that that's right. We're going to have the same cast of characters till at least after Iowa, maybe New Hampshire, because you've got some people that are struggling. They're not getting any traction, but they just won't give it up.
Well, Larry, I thought the idea was that they control or limit the number of debates. It still seems some of these candidates may be in some way staying alive by these debates, particularly since in the last debate that they had on the Republican side, you had to show at least 2.5% support in the polls or more. 2.5%, that's usually a rounding number, an error number.
That's within the margin of error. I mean, all these candidates who are scoring at 1% and 2% and 3% could be at 0 for all practical purposes. I think the major television networks want the numerous debates. You know, it helps their reputation. They're getting millions, 13 million, I think, saw watch the last
Unless you're CNBC and you have a problem with your moderator.
Right.
or an alleged problem with your moderator.
Right.
Now, this election seems to, everybody says it's being basically fueled by all the anger out in the electorate, Bill. What's that all about?
You know, I think that's really what it comes down to, is that people are fed up with the inaction that they've been watching in particularly Washington, D.C. Charlie Cook, who's been watching politics since dirt was made, said the other day something that struck me, that over 50% of the Republican activists are mad, and they're going for anybody they see that is not a politician. And so you've got Carson, you've got Donald Trump, and you got Carly.
Now, Larry, this anger that's out there, you don't see it as much on the Democratic side, but overall, is it growing as we continue to go through all these debates, or is it starting to diffuse a little bit?
I think it's growing because the major policy issue for the Republicans in the debates, and therefore in the voting probably, so far is immigration. And the Republican base is so angry about the immigration issue, they want more talk about it. They want more of the candidates to line up with Donald Trump. And of course, what I would have viewed as legitimate Republicans they're dragging their feet. They don't want to be over there with Trump. I mean, we all wrote him off in the beginning. Now that he looks like he's a real candidate, I think the primary reason is because of his very far conservative stand on immigration, and none of the other candidates can afford. I mean, that's an issue that guarantees a win for my Democrat, is what it is. It might lead Trump to get the nomination, But any candidate, I think, with his position on immigration is going to lose in a general election.
Bill, one of the last polls I saw, I think it was the MSNBC Wall Street Journal poll, showed that combined Trump and Carson are pulling 53% of the Republican support out there. Yet you continue to hear the pundits say neither one of them has a chance. They will not be the nominee. Now, usually the person that's ahead this time in the presidential race this early doesn't wind up being that way. But are they going to lose 53% of the vote? How's that going to happen?
Well, you know, we're looking at the people that are paying attention to it when we do those polls. Most people in the U.S. have not really focused, so it's people like the three of us and others that are watching this.
But they have 14 million people watching these debates, so it's a little more than just us three.
Well, true. It was a bad night for, Netflix. But eventually the people are going to start listening to what's being said, and I think you'll see the peeling off at that point.
Larry, I know you're the Democrat here, but do you see the primary side on the Republicans being sort of two races within one? Who's going to be the choice when you get down to, say, the final 2 or 3 or 4 for the right-wing side, and which one is more the center or the moderate or the establishment side of the party?
I think you're going to get, at least in the first 2, Iowa and New Hampshire, maybe even to South Carolina, you're going to get Mr. Trump, Dr. Carson, and one other candidate out of the rest of the pack. With the exception, as Bill and I were talking about before we were on the air, I think Jeb Bush will have a resurgence. As long as he doesn't give up and quit, I think at some point a large part of the Republican Party is going to look around and say, we need an adult here, and that's going to be Jeb Bush.
Okay, let's take a break. We're talking with Larry Woods and Bill Phillips. We're talking 2016 presidential politics. Back to continue our conversation after this break.